As far as I can remember, I have been listening to metal music since very early on, like 1985 perhaps, when I started to listen to stuff like, you know, AC/DC or even Loudness. And then things kind of get a bit more serious when I start to listen to Sepultura and even Slayer. And long story short, until today, I am still pretty much, you know, a very hardcore listener of metal music, especially black metal and industrial metal. Which IEM I would recommend? None other than Tanjim Zero, at just priced at $9. Okay, that is still one of my favorite. You don't see me using that much frequently recently because I have something else which I will show you later. But Tanjim Zero is probably one of the very best that you can get right now for budget range, for anything under $10 that will be suitable for metal music. Why? Because Tanjim Zero offer very solid mid bass, okay, and very solid attack transient speed. The speed itself is pretty much, in particular, I would say similar to atymotic sort of speed, okay. And then when we talk about some other element of it, the good thing about Tanjim Zero is that, you know, it does not extend really deep in the upper frequency, okay. It just extends just enough to a point that when you listen to metal music, the mixing for metal music tend to emphasize on upper frequency. This is where Tanjim Zero will work properly because it will present the macro detail of the treble region. You will hear the decay, you will hear the energy and the sparkle, but never offensive because it does not extend really deep, meaning that the extension itself in the upper frequency is kind of a bit roll off. And then when it comes to the mid-range, Tanjim Zero somehow have that emphasis forwardness to the mid-range to a point that even though with the tuning of certain metal recording which tend to be a kind of a bit V, you're gonna get, you know, pretty much very solid and crisp sounding vocal, which is something, again, I love. And then talking about lower frequency, now this is very important for metal music, mid bass rather than sub bass. And this is one of the reason also, which I will talk about more after this as well, why you don't want to use Harman sort of tuning for metal music. Because Tanjim Zero is the exact opposite of Harman tuning. It focuses a lot more on mid bass. And mid bass is important to all metal music because you want to hear that kick drum. You want to hear that string bass, okay, the impact, the punch that is typically evident in metal music. And then of course, what other option that we have in the budget segment for metal music? Let's just talk about FIO FD11, one that came into my mind. Okay, it is an easy recommendation, this FIO FD11, because it is super smooth and very airy. And of course, it does not offer the kind of speed and imaging like Tanjim Zero, but what it does better than Tanjim Zero is the way it presents the smoothness, overall sound smoothness and the analog timbre. And in this aspect, metal music does benefit really well with this kind of tuning. And also we can also have a look at some of the other budget range, which I would say that if you love bassy kind of presentation, then I would say that look no further than something like, you know, this TRN MT1. Yes, that dirt cheap, very bassy kind of, and very energetic with the treble itself. And that is pretty much, I would say, not as refined as Tanjim Zero, but I still enjoy my metal music using those type of IEM. And those are the option that you have for anything which is under $30. And perhaps I can also even say that some other budget range beyond $50 all the way to $100. And I would highly recommend something like Caffeine Del C, which offer amazing smoothness to the overall sound presentation itself, the way it presents the transient and everything. Caffeine Del C is perhaps my topmost recommendation, especially if you love strong mid bass and strong sub bass. Okay, but for me personally, within that price range, I would prefer something which is a bit more neutral, like this Rose Technique Star CT5 Pro, which I reviewed recently. That is something which is pretty much similar to atymotic sort of sound, and it is in fact in alignment with Tanjim Zero sort of tuning, emphasis on mid bass, not so much on the sub bass, but you get really crisp and solid with the upper frequency, anywhere from upper mid range to the treble region. And the extension itself just nice to a point that it will never appear offensive. Okay, so that's pretty much on the range of between up to $100, and then going beyond $100 all the way to $3,000. Of course, the ultimate reference for me is that I absolutely enjoy listening to my metal music using Shure KSE 1500. And yeah, I know that thing is super expensive, perhaps, you know, anywhere from $3,000 to $3,500 depending on which version that we are looking at. But then again, we are talking about true electrostatic IEM. Shure KSE 1500 will present the details. Okay, if you love detail, especially for technical metal, anything which exhibit, you know, audiophile kind of mastering or recording, then Shure KSE 1500 is perfect for that. Because one, the transient speed is beyond anything which is comparable in the market right now, being electrostatic, zero distortion, which means that, okay, you're gonna get super smooth frequency range, anything from upper frequency, lower frequency to the mid-range itself, okay? And then the imaging, the resolution, it is just incomparable to anything else. And while doing that, while being highly analytical, it does not appear to be offensive at all with all that macro and micro detail presented to you. And that is why I love Shure KSE 1500 so very much, because it is so versatile that it can present, okay, many type of music, including metal, be it hi-fi or lo-fi, to a point that it is immersive, super immersive. Okay, failing that, when I am not using my Shure KSE 1500, then this is what I would recommend. Topmost, perhaps the one that I use the most now, which is Sivga Nightingale. And also you see here, where is it? Hold on, let me see this. Okay. Let me try to get it. It's in my pocket here. I was listening to this just now. Yes, Hidis MP145. And another one, which I'd like to highlight, also Final Audio A5000. Okay, now let's just, hold on, there's a noise there. Somebody's ramming the bike. Okay, just a moment. It's early in the morning anyway. People like to try their bikes because the street is empty. So where were we? Sivga Nightingale. Okay, this is a magnetic planar. So being magnetic planar, I can be, you know, the kind of speed which I can expect from this Sivga Nightingale is pretty much almost on par to the kind of speed and resolution of Shure KSE 1500. Not exactly the same, because electrostatic being electrostatic will still be superior, but magnetic planar is close enough. It is definitely faster than dynamic driver, and you need speed when it comes to metal music, because without speed, metal music would appear congested. So this is where you would appreciate something like this, okay? Because what will happen is that, you know, you're gonna get separation, layering, which is very clean, even for very lowly mastered recording, like some of the black metal, Burzum, Darkthrone, or even Venom, okay? You're gonna hear clarity when using this Sivga Nightingale. And I think most important of all, the smoothness, the overall smoothness. This thing is unbeatable. I repeat, unbeatable when it comes to smoothness, okay? It is super smooth all the way from the upper frequency, mid-range to the lower frequency. And when we talk about smoothness in the upper frequency, this Sivga Nightingale is exceedingly good with it, because I do not lose, okay, micro detail, just like what happened when I was, you know, when I used Tanjim Zero or even Star City 5 Pro. I will lose some of that micro detail, but not this, okay? I still get that resolution of the micro detail in the upper frequency, but in a way that it is being presented in a super smooth way. And it is also mid-centric. So being mid-centric, meaning that I get a lot more of guitar presentation or even snare drum presentation when I use Sivga Nightingale. So all in all, to summarize, resolution, imaging, and the most key element would be the immersion factor. And then, of course, the second which I like to use would be this Hidis MP145, which is pretty much very similar to Final Audio A5000 as well, okay? Because Final Audio A5000 and this Hidis MP145 share one very common thing. They are both tuned to be like, you know, more towards a V sound curve rather than this as compared to this Sivga Nightingale. So when I say V sound curve, this is where I will switch to MP145 or Final Audio A5000 when I need a bit more of excitement, engagement, okay, energy, and sparkle with the lower frequency and also the upper frequency, and not so much on the mid-range. So my now saying is that MP145 sounds, or even Final Audio A5000 sounds a lot more, okay, engaging and vibrant as compared to Sivga Nightingale. Let me just talk about, the IEM which I would not recommend for metal music. Okay, so what are the characteristics of IEMs that you would not want to use for metal music? Okay, let's just have a look. First, Atmospheric ER4 series. Yes, if you know me, if you have been following me and the AndyAudioVault on Dongle Madness, then you would know that Atmospheric ER4S is in fact my favorite. But then I would never want to use Atmospheric ER4 series ever again for music, because they are just, it is in fact a monitoring device, a studio reproduction listening device. So it offers high level of accuracy, transparency, to a point that, if you subject it to something which is like a civilized music, yes, you're gonna get superb resolution. But when you use it to listen to something which is lo-fi, something which is tuned to be, shrieking, high pitch and everything, then it gets really offensive, especially in the upper mid-range with Pina region, Pina glare kind of thing, or all the way to the treble itself. It's just simply too piercing for my ears. Okay, and then something like, Dunu Falcon Ultra, okay, which I reviewed recently, or even let's say some other IM like, Moondrop Blessing 3, okay, or even let's say Campfire Solaris SH 2023 edition. All those IM will exhibit the kind of imaging resolution which is super analytical, but they are not exactly suitable for this kind of music, metal music. I don't think I can listen to metal music for more than 1 hour because they are just so fatiguing with the upper frequency. So those are the kind of IM which I would not recommend for metal music. Probably you would have known that I have owned, okay, Hi-Fi-Man HE400 SE, and also I am a current owner of Hi-Fi-Man Sundara. Between those two, you might be asking which one is more suitable for metal music. Then my answer would be Hi-Fi-Man Sundara. Why? Hi-Fi-Man Sundara is pretty much similar to Hidis MP145 in many ways. Okay, Hi-Fi-Man HE400 SE, on the other hand, may not be suitable for metal music because it is just simply a bit more metallic and brighter sounding than compared to Hi-Fi-Man Sundara. Both of them offer similar kind of speed which is suitable for metal, but because of the tuning which is brighter on HE400 SE, then I would say Sundara is the one to go for if you want to use magnetic planar headphone for metal music. And then let's talk about some other headphone which are very popular. Beyerdynamic. Okay, so most of you would recognize this DT990 Pro 250 ohm. Okay, that is one headphone which I also used to own, and I also used to own DT880. Okay, between those two, pretty much similar to the way I would describe the Hi-Fi-Man just now. DT990 is not a headphone you want to use for metal music. It is probably the brightest sounding headphone which I have ever used, aside from Grado SR60. It can literally pierce your ear, not just metal music, but some other pop or even let's say, more civilized music would appear very bright on DT990. It is definitely the kind of headphone for treble head. So to me, it is not suitable for metal music. It's just simply too offensive, like an ice pick, picking your ears. And then, but if you must use Beyerdynamic, then my suggestion would be to use Beyerdynamic DT880 600 ohm. That DT880 600 ohm is pretty much similar to Hi-Fi-Man Sundara in many ways. It is not as fast sounding as Sundara, but it does offer the kind of lower frequency which is a bit more fun and engaging as compared to Sundara, because being a dynamic driver and high impedance. If you are familiar with my Dongle Madness or AndyAudioVault review, especially when I am reviewing dongles or DAC, just pay attention to this certain keyword which I tend to repeat many times. Analytical yet musical, analog and smooth. So those are the keywords which indicate that those DAC and amp would be suitable for metal music. Why? Because you're gonna need that smoothness to temper down some of the aggression of the metal music. If you use something which is highly analytical, perhaps something like my Burson Audio Playmate 2, that thing is super analytical, okay? It is super suitable for jazz music, for let's say anything other than metal music, because the details, the micro details, the way it presents the sound frequency and everything, the way it resolve everything can kind of be a bit overbearing when I use it for metal music, especially when I pair it with something like Hafaiman Sundara or Hidis MP145, okay? And having said that, I would use JDS Lab Atom 2 DAC and amp, and also Fio Q15 when I want to enjoy my metal music, because they are analytical but yet at the same time they offer kind of a bit of tempered down when it comes to micro detail presentation, so they would appear less edgy and less sharp sounding. And then the other thing, alright, when it comes to dongle, you see here, this is my favorite now, and I think you would have seen my review on this, which is Onyx Alpha X1, okay, and also my favorite Hibi FC6, Centrance DACport HD, or even Questal M12i, or even Colorfly CDA M1P, or even EPZ TP50. All of those dongles are highly recommended for metal music, especially the one that offers slow filter, because that is the kind of smoothness that you would want when you listen to metal music without losing analytical prowess to the output itself. I hope this has been useful to you. If you do have any kind of question, which other IEM or dongles or headphone which is applicable to metal music, which I did not mention in this video, please feel free to drop your question down below.
Du är